Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm Sam Lance, joined by Jackson Bezdek, and we also have the founder of the Field of 68, Rob Dauster, here with us today. So it's going to be a great episode, and we have quite the crazy game from Saturday to talk about to lead off the show. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Episode 61 of The Hum, coming right up next. All right, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today on The Hum. It is your second appearance on The Hum, and we are glad to have you for the second season in a row. And it's been a huge weekend of just sports ball for us over here in Kansas. Obviously, the game against Houston on Saturday, and then the Kansas City Chiefs going to another Super Bowl on Sunday. How are you just doing on this Monday morning after a crazy weekend of sports?
I'm good, man. I'm tired. I got back from Auburn early on Sunday morning. We had to leave the hotel at like 5 a.m. to be able to make my flight out of Atlanta. So I didn't realize I made a mistake, and it's on me. It's my fault. I didn't realize that Auburn was actually in the Central Time Zone. So you lose an hour. So I scheduled a 10 a.m. flight out of Atlanta, thinking, yeah, you know what, I'll be able to sleep until like 6:30. Nope. Not true. You got to leave there like 5:30 to be able to make a 10 a.m. flight. So that was a little tired, but it is what it is, man. That's this time of year. That's this business.
Yep, I spent my whole entire Sunday in the Chiefs parking lot and then inside the Chiefs stadium for the game. So I'm also having a little bit of a recovery Monday. Uh, let's just go ahead and get into it, Rob. We're here to talk about the Kansas Jayhawks, and the first thing we have to go over is this Houston game. I mean, it's probably the wildest game that I have ever covered or seen in my time. I've covered college basketball for like 5 years now, and this one is probably the wildest game I've seen. Kansas ends up losing 92-86 in double overtime. The Jayhawks had the game won twice, but really they just couldn't inbound the ball. And it's still crazy to me that DeJuan Harris went to the line with 18 seconds left and Kansas up 6 points. And Kansas ended up losing this game. You got to give credit to Houston for knocking down a lot of clutch shots there at the end, but it's just brutal loss for Kansas. The stat that stands out from your guy, Jared Burson, per KenPom, Houston had a 0.4% chance to win this game. That makes it the most unlikely of about 1,500 games between AP top 25 teams over the last 15 seasons. It's actually kind of funny. The second most unlikely also happened in Allen Fieldhouse when Kansas came back 14 against West Virginia in 2017.
Hmm.
And Kansas fans sure remember that game, but this one is one to forget. Rob, my first question is, have you ever seen anything like this happen? Have you ever seen this before?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. I remember there was one game in USC maybe 15 years ago where they hit a three. There were 2.8 seconds left, down by five, side out of bounds play. You hit it 3.8 seconds left. They throw the ball in from just like the other team had no timeout, so they just threw the ball up to half court, and the other team picked it up and fired a shot from like 60 feet and made it. So like stuff like this happens. The wild part is that it happened twice, right? Kansas was up by six with a minute and 10 seconds left, I think it was, maybe 15, something like that, in regulation. And there was the 5 second violation on Zeke Mayo. And there was the inability to get off a shot at the end of regulation after Houston tied it. And there was another turnover and another bad shot in there or something. But to me, that was the biggest part is it not only happened once, but it happened twice. And the frustrating part, maybe frustrating is the wrong word, but I do think I came away from like the first, I guess, 38 minutes and 45 seconds of that game being really, really impressed with Kansas and thinking, you know what, using Flory like this, they might have figured something out there. And you know what? Giving Rylan Griffin 31 minutes and getting the guy that can actually just stand outside and make shots, right? Instead of AJ Storr in that role, like they might have figured something out here. They might have put this thing together. You know, I don't think that it's crazy to think that a rotation that includes Flory, Hunter, and KJ in the front court, and then Zeke Mayo, Shaquille Moore, DeJuan Harris, Ryland, and David Coit in the backcourt. Like that's a pretty good team. You got some shooters in there. You got some people that can space it. I think that playing alongside someone like Flory makes more sense for Hunter. And then, of course, you give it all away, and we're left here saying Kansas is now 3 games out of first place in the Big 12 standings. They're not on track to be able to put themselves in a position to get like a number one or a number two seed. And everyone is talking about Houston and Milos Uzan and the way that Juwan Roberts played down the stretch. It was pretty shocking how that all kind of figured out. And the crazy part is I was watching it from press row at the Auburn Tennessee game, and we're sitting there and we're trying to watch. You got two top six teams on the floor like 20 feet in front of me, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out like what the hell's going on in this Houston kid. Like, that was a wild Saturday, wild end to the night. But that to me that was the biggest takeaway is that if they had found a way to hold, like I still think Kansas figured something out there. They blew this game, but they figured something out, and I think it makes a lot of sense for the way that they want to do this.
So how do you move on mentally from this, Rob? Because I'm going to tell you that the fan base is not going to move on. The camping group list just came out for the student section, and there are 10 groups for the UCF game, which
Mhm.
in my time would have been the lowest group number total of any Big 12 game ever. So there's clearly people are pissed off. I'm just going to say that. Big 12 race seems out of it. So, yes, on the court, Kansas seemed to have figured something out. I totally agree with you. What do you think going forward the mentality situation is, and how does this not just completely deplete your season? The second home loss for the Kansas Jayhawks in 1 year is crazy.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is, man. Like, do you think that there's going to be 10 people camping out next what is it, next Tuesday when they play Iowa State?
Right.
I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you're probably gonna be back to the normal number there. This might just be it's UCF. Like it's not. Do they even count as Big 12 still? You know what I mean? Like it is. It kind of is what it is. But um, I think for the play, I'd be more worried about like Zeke Mayo and probably not Dewan because Dewan's been through some wars, right? Like he's won a national championship. He probably knows how to deal with stuff like this. But like Zeke the 5 second violation, there was another turnover in there. He threw the ball away trying to get it. Like the whole point of you taking the ball out of bounds against pressure is Bill Self is saying, I'm putting the ball in the hands of the guy that I trust to be able to make a good decision here and not throw it away. And you go and you throw it away because at some point you're going to run into another situation where you're playing a close game and you got a big possession late, whether it's Iowa State at home, whether it's Texas Tech, whether it's one of these games on the road that you're going to be playing against teams you probably should beat. Maybe it's something in a tournament and you got to trust someone can take the ball out and actually get it in. Like that should be the easiest thing that you're able to do. And twice they messed that up. Now, credit to Houston. Houston's really good at forcing like that. It's Houston, right? But it's still something that's a bit of a red flag to me. And that will be the one that you got to keep an eye on that one, right? Something similar happened about a month ago with UConn and Alex Caravan. He missed 2 free throws. They were down by one at Villanova, like 3 seconds left, and he missed 2 free throws. It was the first time in his career he'd ever missed back-to-back free throws, and it cost him a game. And he came out the next game at Georgetown. I think it was like 26 points, 7 boards, five. He had one of his best games of the season. So that's one thing I would be keeping an eye on. What is it? Tuesday? When do they play UCF? Tomorrow?
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Tuesday, UCF, then Saturday, Baylor, Monday, Iowa State. Monday, Iowa State for Big Monday.
Yeah, that's what I would be keeping an eye on for me is what is Zeke Mayo doing this next game? Because if you can get past it and you know you if you're making shots in your next game, then I think it's something where you should be able to get past it pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rob, as far as Kansas finding something here. I think Flory Badunga is really going to be kind of a centerpiece that plays, 25 plus minutes per game, even when KJ Adams comes back. He had a career high 19 in this game. I think really in the second half, uh, totally flipped the game on Houston. Flory did. And then whenever Flory fouled out, that was to me whenever I was like, okay, like this one's over. Flory is out of here. They don't have somebody to put on Juan Roberts to kind of seal the deal. I want to ask you just kind of to rehash the take of Kansas kind of finding something here with Flory. And what do you think is different about him versus KJ Adams? And what do you think kind of happens when KJ Adams comes back?
The what happens when KJ Adams comes back is going to be a really interesting thing because you got like a veteran, a leader, a Bill Self guy. Like KJ's done. I don't think he's done anything wrong in his like probably in his life, let
Right.
alone just his Kansas career, right? And he is a guy that is exceptionally easy to root for, even as someone that is not a Kansas fan, right? Um, but what Flory does is he brings you. There's a different level of rim protection when he's out there because of the length. He's a better rebounder. He can finish over length around the basket. He's more of a lob threat. Um, but the single biggest thing is that it allows you to play uh, Hunter as more of like the high post guy. Because when you have KJ out there, a lot of what they run is some of those like short roll actions for him. They give you they'll set a ball screen. They'll try to get him rolling around the foul line where he can hit one of those little like 8 foot floaters or maybe make a pass down to Hunter Dickinson. And then when you have Hunter in there, he's much more comfortable kind of in that high post, mid post role where he's the one making the dump down pass to Flory. And I think that it's a lot more effective that style of offense when you have a guy that can do what Hunter does because he's a better shooter. He could pull out to the 3 point line. You get him in more pick and pop actions, and you're not kind of sacrificing the rim pressure you can put on people because you still have Flory in there. Um, you have more of an athletic rim protector in there. I think KJ is a terrific defender, and frankly, I don't really think the defense is or has ever been Kansas issue with Flory in there, with KJ in there. They're going to be a top 10 defense in America. I have no doubt about that. Um, but I do think that you get a little bit of added rim protection and athleticism in and around there. So I just think it opens up more offensively when you can allow Hunter to be the guy that's playing out of the high post as opposed to KJ being the guy that's playing a little bit more time on the perimeter. It opens up the floor spacing a little bit. It makes decisions when you drive. Like that's the other thing is we talk about floor spacing as being someone that can step out on the 3 point line and space the floor. But floor spacing is also when you get in the lane, you got that help side rim protector. If you got a guy behind you in the dunker spot that where if somebody throws the ball up to the top of the square, they're going to catch it and they're going to dunk it. Like there's a level of length and athleticism that Flory has. As athletic as KJ is, like it's different with Flory. Like Flory looks like one of those Houston bigs. He's what is he like 6'9" with a 7'6" wingspan, plays hard as hell.
It's
So
ridiculous. Yeah.
that's to me, that's the biggest difference. And I just think Flory, I don't know. This is the way that I would phrase it. If I was starting a basketball team from scratch and I had to take one of those two guys, I think I might take KJ Adams first. But given the structure of this Kansas roster, I think that Flory is the guy that needs to play more minutes than KJ does moving forward, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And that dunker spot that you're describing, guys, think Udoka Azubuike and what made him so good. Like that's exactly what it was, is he could catch everything and dunk everything. And Flory has shown that he can do a little bit of that. And what also helps the offense is Rylan Griffin seemingly not missing all day on Saturday, especially on a night when AJ Storr is essentially a zero out there. And so you brought it up earlier. Just talk a little bit about Rylan, what you saw from him, and he needs, like, the minutes were good. He needs 25 plus every game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to shoot this way, then you absolutely do need to get him out on the floor a little bit more. Then what was it in the 5 games before this? I had the stat written down. He is 2 for 13 from three,
Hmm.
so it helps when he's actually making those shots. I just think that he is a better fit for that role as being a guy that spaces the floor, as being a guy that has gravity, because he's kind of okay just kind of standing out there and waiting for somebody to create an open look for him, right? I think the thing that you run into with Storr is that um, he he's like a tough shot maker. He's not really a shooter. He's a scorer. He's a guy that needs the ball in his hands to be effective. He's a guy that is kind of at his best when you give him a little bit of freedom and say, okay, AJ, go cook. And there's going to be nights where he'll pop off for like 30, 35, right? And there's going to be nights where he ends up with 12, 15, 18 points. And it's not the most efficient. And that's not the role that you want him in when you have a roster that has DeJuan Harris, and when you have a roster that has one of Flory or KJ, and you have a roster that has Hunter Dickinson on the floor, because that room to operate isn't there as much as it is when you put a bunch of shooters around him. And I don't know if he necessarily has the mentality to play the role that he is going to have to play that Rylan can play. I don't think he has the skill set specifically to be able to do that. And to be frank, like I do think that he is a little bit of a cautionary tale for coaches moving forward in the sense that you gotta. I know it's quick. I know when you're operating in the transfer portal, we're looking at like days instead of months and years to be able to evaluate who these kids are, how well they fit. I know a lot of it is like you check a box score, you get him on a visit, you do an interview, you see him work out, and then you kind of say, all right, well, look, he kind of fits what we need. Let's just hope for the best. But when you're talking about investing hundreds of thousands, in some cases, millions of dollars into these transfers that are coming in, you got to make sure that it is the right fit. And it's hard to do, I know, but like the vetting for some of that stuff probably should be start like now. Yeah, everyone knows who you're going to be targeting in the transfer portal, right? You should be doing some of that vetting now, even if it's considered tampering. Like there's too much money at stake. If you're one of those programs, or you're those collectives, or you're the general manager of some of these teams that's in charge of that stuff, like the vetting should be done now. You should have a database of guys that you find out whether or not they are the right fit for you. And I just don't think that AJ Storr, in hindsight, was the right fit for what Kansas needed out of this role.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in this game that Shaquille Moore didn't really see a lot of run in the second half there. I think it's just because Kansas needed that spacing with Rylan out there. I feel bad for Rylan Griffin, honestly, after this game because it seemed like every three-pointer that Rylan made, it was like the biggest shot that Kansas needed at that exact moment. And if Kansas wins this game, you could point to him and be like, yeah, Rylan Griffin won the game with that shot. I want to go back to Storr just really quick, Rob. Do you think this relationship, Kansas, AJ Storr, you think it's cooked? Do you see this working at all this season? Right now,
This
it's hard to
season,
play him.
no.
It's
Like
hard to
this,
play him.
yeah, this season, I don't think you're going to stop playing him because, frankly, you need the bodies, right? They started using him as long as KJ's out. You kind of have to use him in like this small ball four role, and it is what it like. You have to use him. You have to find a way to make it work. I also would urge anybody listening to this to watch Bill Self's demeanor on the sideline when AJ Storr takes like a tough shot off the dribble with like 15 seconds left on the shot clock. Like just watch the way that he reacts on the sideline, and that tells you everything that you need to know. The waving
Yep.
the hand over here, this stuff. Yeah, that kind of tells you all you need to know about what some of that shot selection is. Just in terms of Shaquille Moore, like when you're a role guy like that, like there's going to be games where your minutes make more sense to be played. There's going to be minutes where games where it makes more sense to have Rylan out there. I think when you're playing a team like Houston, Shaquille Moore's fits a little like he's kind of a Houston guard in terms of how he plays, and you're never going to out Houston if that makes sense. And I think what you needed was somebody that could bring something a little different, maybe a little bigger, maybe a little more size, maybe a little 3-point shooting, maybe a little floor spacing. And that was Rylan Griffin. So as long as those guys are, again, it's going to be a matchup specific thing, but as long as one of them plays well and one of them works in that matchup, it's fine. It'll work. I'm not worried about that part of it.
Got any more final thoughts on this crazy, crazy Houston game ending before we get into some big picture stuff?
Just a really impressive win for Houston, man. They're sitting here, they're 8-0 in the Big 12, a year after coming into the program and winning the Big 12. Like that, I think that Houston found their closer. I said this the other day. Like I think Houston found their closer. It's Milos Uzan. It's Jawan Roberts getting to that. I don't even know if it's like a hook or a push or a jumper or whatever it is, but he gets to his left hand. You bounce off his right shoulder. He creates that those 6 inches of space, and he's hitting that little jumper off the glass, and you just can't stop it. Like when he gets it, you just can't stop it.
Yeah. All right. February is right around the corner. And since this is the Kansas Jayhawks podcast, we only deal in big pictures, Final Four bust type of situation. What do you think? Just straight up, off the top of your head right now, after a brutal loss, yet showing a lot of signs of, hey, maybe this actually worked. Right now, is Kansas a Final Four team?
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. it can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. I would not have them as a Final Four favorite, but I mean, it's Bill Self and it's Hunter Dickinson and it's DeJuan Harris. And the idea of saying that that group cannot make a Final Four seems really silly to me. They got to, I think, lean more into Rylan Griffin, figure out if this Flory thing is going to work. But I mean, can they make a Final Four? Yes. Would I be picking them in my bracket if once, like, probably not. So, but I'm not going to be the one to tell you to bet against Bill Self and Hunter Dickinson and DeJuan Harris. That would be crazy.
It all depends on the draw. Every year, I could
Not
have
every
told
team,
you.
man.
Yeah, it depends on the draw. I wanted to ask you about this, Rob, because Fran Fraschilla made an interesting point. I thought on DeJuan Harris. Obviously, DeJuan Harris was great in this game. I think it was 8 assists, 12 assists, something like that. 8 assists, one turnover. I know it was 12. 12 assists, one
12
turnover.
assists and turnover, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't really get much better than that. And Kelvin Sampson said after the game there isn't a guard in America that he respects more than DeJuan Harris. But if you think about the national championship team with DeJuan running that point guard, surrounded by pros. Ochai Agbaji is a pro. Christian Brown's a pro. Jalen Wilson is a pro right now. It's just, I feel like it's just a little different in that aspect this year. And Fran, I was kind of, you know, uh, kind of foreshadowing that maybe this Kansas team won't work out because of that fact, with Harris not really having the just absolute pros around him. What do you just think of that statement from Fran? And I think really the two pros on this team might be the freshmen and Flory, and then Raquise Passmore whenever he kind of gets his opportunity. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, I think it's 100% true. The best teams that Bill Self has had have had great players on the wing, and I don't think that you have great players on the wing. I don't think that you have great size on the wing, and let's just call it what it is. It doesn't necessarily matter what the position is for these guys. If you have NBA players on your roster, you're going to be better than the teams that don't have NBA players on their roster. And I don't know if there is an NBA player on this Kansas roster right now, and that's just where they are right now. They're not the only team that's kind of dealing with that a little bit, but that's just where they are right now.
All right, Rob, you got Kansas hosting UCF tomorrow. Then you got Baylor Saturday, then Iowa State. Just how big is this stretch of games, in your opinion, for Kansas? And how bad do you think Kansas maybe needs to get this Iowa State win this coming Monday just for overall confidence? You lose that one. I think that's 3 losses at home now in conference, which I'd have to look it up, but I would imagine that hasn't happened in quite some time.
It happened recently. Let me. Is it
2018.
yeah,
2018?
2018 was the last time.
2018, they lost 2 at home.
Yeah, it's not. They've been losing some games at home.
But three at home. If the loss to Iowa State, I wonder how long that's been.
I'm looking
It
right
might have
now.
been 2018. That team was
Yeah, I'm
not
looking
good.
right now. Was it? It might have been. Hold on. Was it 2013?
Mm,
Maybe
mm.
2012. There was one game. I think it was when Elijah Johnson was there. When was Elijah Johnson?
13, 14, 12, 13. Those would be the two I'm thinking of. 13, 14 was Wiggins' year, so I don't think it was that. 12, 13, I can look at that. It might be that one.
I'm looking on KenPom right now, going through the years. Maybe I'm losing my mind. I thought there was a season where they lost
I don't
3.
think it's happened since I've been alive. 3 home losses. I actually don't think that's
In
happened
conference, in conference, three
in
home
conference.
losses. It's really
Oh, in conference, yeah. In 2018, they lost 3. It was Arizona State, it was
Not
Texas Tech,
conference.
and it was Oklahoma State. Yeah,
Oklahoma State.
okay.
in conference, they lost 3. They only lost 2 league opponents at home. Um, in terms of like to me, the confidence one is you got to beat UCF and you got to win at Baylor. Iowa State's Iowa State. Iowa State's awesome this year. I don't think it's losing to them at home would necessarily be a confidence thing. Like they're a better team than Kansas is right now,
Yep.
frankly.
Yep.
But if like I don't think if you lose to UCF and at Baylor, I don't think that you have a chance to be able to win that game. I also don't see them losing to UCF or at Baylor. Baylor's not very good, and they should. The last time that they played UCF, they won by 51 points, right? UCF has like a lot of young size, and I think that they'll beat. I don't think they'll win both of those games.
Yeah, not concerned about UCF. Baylor's been weird. I mean, it's very unfortunate that Kansas seems like they're already out of the Big 12 picture already. But that is a testament to how good Houston and Iowa State have been this year. And, I think you're right. You lose Iowa State at home. That doesn't really matter. But I can tell you from a fan perspective and just having watched this team since I was 3, that's going to ruffle some people the wrong way. And it'll be interesting to me how that gets dealt with kind of in the offseason. And Bill's going to make another run at the portal just like he did last year and get pissed off. I need to fix my team. We need this, this, and this. So I just think that'll be really interesting to watch for.
Yep. Yeah, I agree, man. It's a big week, and I can't wait for that Kansas Iowa State game.
Yeah,
I
it'll be
cannot
great.
wait. It's gonna be
That's
awesome.
my last day in Lawrence before I move back
Oh,
home. So
nice.
that'll be my last stand here. Well, all right, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think we're going to be back after this UCF game. Get somebody to preview Baylor with us. So we will see you guys next time.